Alright, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast. BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. We've covered a few true crime cases on this channel, so I thought it'd be nice to change it up a little bit and cover some of the things that we had been discussing about the New World Order, kind of to continue on to some of the previous discussions that we had about what the New World Order is and why are so many people talking about it, and maybe there's actually something that a lot of other people are overlooking. If you've ever heard any of the previous segments we've done, we've really been trying to kind of highlight one major thing associated with this New World Order that the conspiracy theorists are always talking about. They always identify it as a group of people, but it's not the people that are important. It is the cycle by which it happens. So many times, though, they're going to try and get you angry at Henry Kissinger or Zbig Brzezinski or David Rockefeller or Nelson Rockefeller, but Henry Kissinger is meaningless. Brzezinski is meaningless. The Rockefellers are meaningless because they're going to die. Zbigniew Brzezinski is already gone. Died at 89, 2017. He's already gone. And someone else is going to take their place. Until, if something happens in society, in human civilization, that allows for kind of breaking the cycle of destruction. And one of the hypotheses that I would say we put forward on this channel is that it is a result of the type of top-down leadership that we have in the world. It's the result of just having something like a king or an emperor or a chief or some sort of leadership that is at the top and is giving out orders. I'll always remember this one thing. It was from a documentary, actually, on the lost pyramids of Caral. And one of the archaeologists in there is saying that large-level projects, which are necessary for civilization, right? Large-level projects are not decided by consensus. It's not just a bunch of people who get together and say, well, why don't we build a pyramid? And then a bunch of people are like, okay, I guess we'll build a pyramid. It doesn't work like that. And civilization is not founded on that. Our civilization, and I mean us as humanity, east, west, north, south, humanity and civilization are founded on there's a leader at the top who is giving out orders, and then different people have to follow them. And then some days people are going to be like, all right, this group is working on this task, and this group is working on another task, and maybe next week people are going to be working on different things. This top-down form of leadership. And the New World Order is just a consequence of that, because over the millennia, this thing has grown bigger and bigger and just ballooned out of control. Because first, we got chiefdoms, right? Tribal leaders, you can call them chiefs. So not all tribes would have like exactly a chief, but whatever terminology you would like to use. Then you got a kingdom. Then you unite it all together. You have an empire and an emperor or an empress. It's just like these things get bigger and bigger. But one of the most overlooked things with all of this stuff is once the empire has fallen, they often refer to the political aspects of the empire and the military aspects of the empire. They don't necessarily look at the financial and economic controls that are associated with that. There's a theory out there, it's like the theory of the Black Venetians, that Rome was an empire of territory, but Venice was the empire of the economic and financial controls. And they're the ones who are actually kind of dealing with all of the money power grab. And then after Rome fell, over the centuries went by and past the Dark Ages, past the Renaissance, and then Venice actually moved their power structure over to the United Kingdom, and that the British Empire was actually founded on the finances. It's the same financial connections of the Venetians. Once again, it's called the theory of the Black Venetians. There are countless videos about it out there. I would say that it's a little bit hard for me to accept because there are just so many abstract things that they are talking about. I'm also not a major expert on Italian history, so I'm somewhat skeptical. I would say, though, if you do have any understanding of the Italian language, or also French and Spanish, I find that the sources that are written in the Romance languages are much more expansive than the ones that are written in English. Like, even if you're just going to be reading about the history of Venice or something, if you have any sort of familiarity with French or Spanish, there are actually things that are quite different written in those languages, and I think that that can be something helpful. But I digress from that. Okay, so how do we get to the New World Order? How do we get to this thing that everybody's talking about? Well, it's sort of like the financial controls are supporting the British Empire, right? Then the United States of America gains independence from Great Britain, but the same economic and financial powers are still in place. Did America magically gain control of all of the world markets? No, they're still part of the same sort of financial and economic exchanges. They're still responsible they're still part of the economic climate of the globe, were they not? Even in 1776, and of course 1789, the ratification of the Constitution, 1791, and all that. And through all those things, the economic and financial controls did not disappear. So you have this economic and power structure in place that did not go away with the British losing the United States of America. It did not go away with the fall of the Roman Empire. And I would even trace it back all the way to the foundations and the sort of thought process and the evolution of humanity. I would just say that that's what the New World Order is. It's the cycle which perpetuates power and pushes it toward a group of individuals at the top, and then people who are kind of less powerful below them. And the people who are at the top want to keep all of the power for themselves. Of course, naturally, hello. The thing is, though, we go through cycles. Sometimes new people are able to enter into this kind of power dynamic. You can overthrow the king. You can overthrow the monarch. You would have examples like Oliver Cromwell, perhaps, 1658 until, of course, when he died. And then 1660, of course, we would return back to something like the monarchy as well. So it's like, once again, there are shifts in the power cycle, but it's the same mechanism by which it happens. And Cromwell's a perfect example of that. It's just like, and of course his son, but it's like you would just see that you have shifts in the power cycle, but the power cycle does not change. It's just kind of birth, life, death, rebirth. It's that same cycle, except in that model, everything is only benefiting the people at the top. The top-down form of leadership. And the only antidote that I could even think of to put forward was something that I mentioned from the TED conference, where they were saying that they can propose a possible form of leadership where instead of having top-down, where the person at the top is either giving orders or approving things, that the person who can be the leader of a society is the one who's at the center of communication and the center of information. The person who absorbs the most information and communicates with the most people is the actual leader. And I think that there could be something to say for that. And the person who gave that TED Talk actually was Martin O'Malley, of all people. And I know he's not popular, but I certainly didn't vote for O'Malley in 2015, the primaries and all that, partially because I'm not a Democrat, and the other part is just that no one else did. No one else was supporting Martin O'Malley. But, he's not someone who really is going to gain any traction with spreading ideas. I just thought it was an interesting thing to say at the TED conference. But what he would say about this sort of dynamic is, this is how we get to the New World Order. It's this cycle which kind of perpetuates the power getting pushed to the top. Because we don't only have the king, no. We don't only have the emperor, no. We have the oligarchs. And we have the people that work for the oligarchs. Like, you can go back to some examples like the Praetorian Guard. But in our present day and contemporary era, we have the CIA, which is very heavily tied to the interests of financial oligarchs. I don't believe for a second that the CIA does everything the president says. I believe that there are just an enormous amount of financial controls on the United States government. And by controls, it's really like influences and pressures. That's the foundation of what we call the deep state. That's what the deep state is it not? So you kind of have that particular dynamic going on. It's something that I think is as old as time, where it's just we have this kind of tier-structured power system that is pushing all of the power and wealth and all of just the benefits of society to this small group of people. And to shatter that mechanism, we would have to have maybe a new form of leadership. And one of the things, though, I would just say is technology, social media, ways to share information would actually be something that is very beneficial to the people, because the people, once again, if you have the most information, you're going to be more powerful. Look at China. They banned Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. I mean, you can use it with a virtual private network, but they don't want the average citizen to be able to use things like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. I wonder why. Maybe it has something to do with the powers of information. And that's actually why InfoWars is called InfoWars. It's because, not to say that Alex Jones is like some guy who's really smart. I mean, I think he's good at manipulating people, but it means you're supposed to join into the information war, the info war. So people have been talking about this a little before. Martin O'Malley, he just kind of did it in more of a sophisticated manner, as opposed to somebody like Alex Jones who starts shouting and ripping his shirt off. But my biggest beef was he wants you to get mad at people like the Rockefellers. He wants you to present this idea like there's this secret cabal that is kind of manipulating world events. Who gives a flying fudge if there is or if it isn't? It's not important. Rockefeller isn't important. Brzezinski isn't important. Kissinger is not important. All of their little cronies and windbags are not important. It doesn't matter who the people are, and it doesn't matter if they're doing things secretly or they're doing things openly. It matters that we have this power structure that is pushing things toward the concept of oligarchy. That's what's important. Our current political system does not benefit you. It does not benefit me. It does not benefit your friends and family members. It only benefits the people who have enormous amounts of power and people who have usually a high sense of financial wealth. But once again, wealth and finances are not everything. No, they are not. Just because somebody wins the lottery, they aren't instantly absorbed into this oligarchy. You look at those people, they win $300 million in the lottery or something. Maybe they get $150 million of it after taxes. Are they part of anything associated with the New World Order? Are they part of anything associated with this power dynamic that we were talking about? No. All it means is that they are going to pay more taxes and they're going to have some more life problems, actually, and people who win the lottery are not really that happy. I think I'd be pretty happy, though, with $150 million. I do not know what their problem is. But I digress from that again, because it's just like, we cannot get mad and look at this type of cabal of people that are running the world secretly. That's not the issue. I mean, I'm not really trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to be silly. I genuinely believe that this is one of the areas where conspiracy theorists are going wrong. They're trying to put a face on this New World Order problem, but really it's just the power structure that we have. It's just that we live in a world that has the power dynamic that is just benefiting the sort of status quo power structure, that is benefiting the concept of oligarchy. Oligarchy is very real. It is very real. It is built upon the foundations of aristocracy, but I believe personally, and I can't really cite too many examples of this, but it's like, even in the past, say for example, you have an aristocracy, which is governed by bloodline, but what I would say about that is, even if only people who have the royal blood are part of the aristocracy, they're going to use people who are useful to it. They're going to become an oligarchy pretty fast, because wouldn't you want some brilliant Henry Kissinger-style strategist working for you so that you can extend your power grab, that you can extend your kind of ability to gain more wealth and to manipulate the system even more? You would absorb new people into that exact oligarchy. So I think a lot of things like that would actually continue to happen, whether you call it the aristocracy, the oligarchy, and to a certain extent the plutocracy. I mean, like, if you have lots of money, you're going to hire people who are very good. But one of the things we also have to say, though, another reason why you don't get mad at the people, even you don't get mad at the king or the emperor or the president, the person who's at the top is not always running the show. They might be a person who approves things, but they're not the ones composing the master plans and such. The person at the top isn't the person who just has brilliant ideas that they're putting into action. They have countless people who come to them with things, and they might approve them. They might sign off on things. This is the basic concept of administration, which leads to bureaucracy, which leads to a status quo that just bogs down civilization, and the people at the top get to hold the power for themselves because things are just so embedded and entrenched and just bogged down in this quagmire that they can't really change anything. They get more power and we don't. They get to kind of be the ones at the top and just be sort of taking all of the benefits of society for themselves, and people at the bottom are just going to be kind of rotting. And I do mean that. I mean, we're talking about this very casually, but think about things associated with extreme poverty around the world. Think about things associated with extreme poverty in the United States of America. There's a reason why we have food banks. There's a reason why we have things that are trying to get like food stamps and the WIC budget and stuff. People are starving to death even in our country, and people are definitely experiencing malnutrition in the United States of America. Not to mention, how about access to adequate health care? Have you ever heard someone say something about that? Think about all the people who are having complications because they can't get the health care that they need. It's the same power dynamic that is kind of creating these problems. And it's been going on perhaps as long as humanity has been in existence and in living in social groups, I would say. I mean, maybe some Homo sapiens that were living in trees with Lucy in Africa. I can't comment too much on them. But as long as we've had our civilization, we've probably had these same things. I mean, it's that quote we said again from Daniel Handler. I mean, the rich have to stay rich because if the poor were not poor, who would they have to feel sorry for? It's just like, it's a broken system, and we live in a broken system. You and I are seeing that every day. So the thing that we can sort of say is, I guess, be aware of information, but when we want to get mad about things, when we want to stand up to things, because I don't want to just say like emotions, get angry, the thing you want to challenge is the dynamic by which our society is governed, the dynamic which leads to bureaucracy, the dynamic which allows for abuse of power, the dynamics that allow for the concept of oligarchy to take place when different powerful individuals get together and unify their power, but they don't spread it out amongst the people. When they don't spread wealth out amongst the people, and they don't spread anything, it's just like, we're not talking about anything like socialism. I'm not even going down that road when I say something like spread wealth out around the people. Absolutely not. It's more just like we're getting screwed over by power-hungry individuals who are manipulating and rigging the system. And Henry Kissinger will die one day, and all of the Rockefeller descendants will die one day, and new people are going to take their place. There are going to be new political ladder climbers who are going to get absorbed into the concept of oligarchy. And it's going to be something that is going to be a hindrance upon our civilization until some sort of revolution of consciousness takes place when we gain a certain sense of awareness on how to defeat